Y'all went crazy with the Monday mailbag this week, and we're kicking off Monday's episode with a look at the pressure that's on James Colzie. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. No, really every day. We're back to Monday and Friday, guys. I know you noticed it last week, but we're back to Monday through Friday every single day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current site expert at Who Dat Dish and contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make it Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We're going to start and end today's episode like we start with an S and ends with an S on my Twitter handle, X handle, whatever you want to call it, right? I'm going to call it Twitter forever. But we're going to start and end today's episode with Monday mailbag because you went absolutely ballistic. Y'all had some phenomenal comments. I had to get more than just my 2 to 3. I went with 4, but I probably could have got 5 to 6. But we're going to have 4, 2 at the beginning, 2 at the end. In between, we'll talk about the surprising and disappointing hires that Tennessee State has made at co-offensive coordinator. But let's kick this thing off with James Colzie because Hollow 9787, when talking about what did James Colzie learn? As a little bit of a background on last week's episode when talking about the things I wanted to hear at SWAC Media Day, one of those was the fact I want to see what did James Colzie learn? I wanted to hear what did he learn in his first year at Florida A&M because year 1 to year 2 is a big transition as a head coach, as a professional athlete, as a college athlete, as a quarterback specifically. There's certain places where that year 1 to 2 jump is very important, and I'm looking at it here for Coach Colzie. But Hollow says he learned what every coach learns when coming to FAMU. We don't play for second place. The standard is the standard. Winning is expected. We will not keep a losing coach long. That's not how FAMU works. Hopefully, he gets the message. I got the message. I'll tell you this, Hollow, if he can read the way I can read, and as a head coach of a collegiate program, I'm going to assume that he has the ability to read and look into statements the way that I can read and look into statements. So I'm going to say that he understands and he gets that message. I do wonder, what is the clock? Because the comment is, we don't play for second place. Losing coaches don't stay long. It's not how FAMU works. Okay, so what's the clock? Because last year, I feel like these sentiments were expressed. I feel like many people last year put the same thing that Hollow is saying right now on James Colzie 365 days ago. I thought it was unfair then. I don't know how I feel now. Because when does the clock start? How many years are you going to give a coach? How many years does he have to be a championship winning team? Right? Like, if he has a year similar to similar to Willie Simmons' first 2 years in the SWAC, is that good enough? They didn't win championships. They had second place, but they were very good teams. And you understood that Simmons was leading the Rattlers down the correct path. Is that good enough for James Colzie? Is a mere improvement over last year's output good enough? I think we have to understand 2 things when it comes to James Colzie. When it comes to James Colzie, there's 2 things that are very interesting: the clock and the bar. The clock is, at what point are we putting the pressure on him to succeed? I feel like many FAMU alum, many FAMU fans, they started that clock last year. I wouldn't be surprised with the disappointing output from 2024 if that clock really comes up in 2025. But then the bar becomes, what is the expectation? What point does he have to reach in order to be satisfactory? Is it a championship? I don't think that's fair. I don't think it'd be fair to say he must win a Celebration Bowl to prove he's a good coach. But what is the bar? Is it a 1-loss season in conference play? Is it a 2-loss season in conference play? Is it knocking off one of the contenders? Because I think you can beat a lot of lower level teams and not really be impressive. And it's almost like an empty calorie record where we see the wins, we see the losses, but let's pay attention to who those wins and losses were against. It's not the same when you beat the bottom 3 versus losing to the top 2. It's not the same because now there's a distinction between you and that upper class. I would say that the bar for James Colzie, whenever that clock is up, James Colzie must prove that he can lead FAMU to being a tier 1 program in the SWAC. That to me is the bar. I can't define the clock though. Defining the clock is way more difficult. But that's Hollow 9787. I appreciate that. That to me is one of the things that I'm really watching is how much people are talking about James Colzie depending on what he does, especially if he struggles. If he struggles, I really want to know what the talking points around Coach Colzie are. Because I gave him a pass in year 1. Anyway, Jackson T789. He has some harsh words for you, boy. Jackson T789. 789. He says, at Locked On HBCU. This segment is a dang lie. He didn't say dang either, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to let you know he did not take kindly to what I had to say. He said this segment is a dang lie. The blueprint was laid by Deion Primetime Sanders, not Willie. Once again, a little bit of background. And I think the rest of these are real examples of people not keeping it 100. I'm just going to be honest with you. I love the comments. I appreciate the comments. I'm going to address these comments because I think we're not being completely truthful. I don't think we're being very truthful with ourselves. And then you're talking to me as if I said something that was crazy because we're not either viewing it the same or you're not being all the way truthful. And I think that this is an example of not being completely truthful because who did Deion Sanders lay the blueprint for? Like, let's be real here. Who has followed? Well, I can't say that because no one's followed the Willie Simmons approach either. But who is following the Deion Sanders approach? It's a very clear. You have traditional coaches and you have non-traditional coaches. I'm not calling them celebrity coaches anymore. I think that's weird. Okay. I've always wanted to find a new way to say it. I'm going to slip up and say celebrity coaches again at some point, but my preferred designation for them is non-traditional coaches. And I got that from something that Trey Oliver said earlier. He just called them traditional coaches. I said, oh, well, what's the opposite of that? Non-traditional. But you have traditional coaches and you have non-traditional coaches. Deion Sanders is the blueprint for all of the non-traditional coaches. Willie Simmons is the blueprint for the traditional coaches. These two can coexist, but to say that this segment is a doggone lie, because background real quick, Willie Simmons said he wants to break through so that HBCU coaches don't have to go to be a positional coach at a P4 in order to just get a G5 school to hire them as a head coach. So that's the blueprint. This is laying out how you go about it as an HBCU coach. Name me the HBCU coach that can go from the SWAC to the Pac-12. I don't care if it's a Colorado level program. You can pick me a P4 program that is at the bottom of their conference on a regular basis. I do not believe that there is a SWAC coach who is going to get that opportunity. To say that Deion Sanders laid the blueprint, that's a dang lie. Because Deion Sanders has a level of privilege that these other guys don't have. Deion Sanders has a level of cachet that these other guys don't have. Deion Sanders has a reputation and a notoriety that these other guys don't have. Deion Sanders is one of the greatest football players to ever grace the field. Deion Sanders is one of the most famous football players to ever grace the field. To sit here and tell me that Chennis Berry or Trey Oliver will get that same opportunity at Colorado would be to say that all of these factors I just brought up about Deion Sanders didn't play a part. And that's not disrespectful. That's realistic. So I don't think that Deion Sanders set the blueprint. Not for them. He set the blueprint for Eddie George. He set the blueprint for Michael Vick. He set the blueprint for Deshaun Jackson. But did he set the blueprint for Terrence Graves? I don't think so. Did he set the blueprint for Reggie Barlow? I don't think so. That's the way that I view it. And speaking of Reggie Barlow, he made two very surprising hires. Two very surprising hires. One was surprising, the other was surprising and disappointing. We're going to get into those as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Maybe you want to go out of town. You understand that football season is just a couple of months away, not even a month away. It's a month away, but you're not going to be able to go on a trip by then. So you're planning ahead. You have 12 months, essentially. You have a year to get your money right so that next summer you can go out the country. Monarch Money is here to help you reach that financial goal. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a trip. It could be a new car. It could be a wedding ring. It could be a multitude of different things. Monarch Money is here to make sure that you not only finance or have the financials to be able to purchase this, but also that you're budgeting and planning ahead. It's a one-stop shop, so no more going to this app and this app and this app. You can take those 4 or 5 apps you've been using, throw them in the trash, get one app, save some storage, save some money, save some time. I'm all about saving. Matter of fact, I want to save you 50%, 50% off your first year if you use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com. That's half off your first year with monarchmoney.com. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget to drop these comments because I loved our mailbag session today. We're going to come back and finish the episode with 2 more comments and kind of a conversation comment too. But we're going to do that. I'm going to do this every single Monday, and I love this. Please continue to drop comments. Please let me keep responding to you in everything that you have to say. Shannon Harris and Toriano Morgan are the new co-offensive coordinators at Tennessee State University, and I'm honestly surprised that either one of them is in this position. Not because they haven't earned it, just because I didn't expect to see them. Matter of fact, the name I expected to see is Fred Keiss. I expected to see Fred Keiss on here because it had already been announced that Fred Keiss would be the offensive coordinator. And now we roll around to this weekend, July 19th, you have an official announcement via Tennessee State's athletic website. And you have Shannon Harris and Toriano Morgan as co-offensive coordinators. Harris, in addition to being the co-offensive coordinator, is the quarterback coach. And in addition to being the co-offensive coordinator, Morgan is the running backs coach. I said in the lead-in that these are surprising hires, but I also said that one's disappointing. And I don't think that you could honestly say that both are disappointing. I wouldn't say that because you know what I'm saying? I wouldn't go that far because I don't know what it is that Harris wants. And with that, we kind of reveal what the disappointing hire is. I'm kind of disappointed about this Morgan hire and how it was handled. Not the fact that they chose Morgan, but more so the way that everything was handled around it. I believe on Friday. I record the episodes early, obviously, and I ended up doing some research, and it was revealed on Friday, I don't know what time, that Morgan was taking this job. Definitely after I recorded, though. The disappointing thing is that Morgan said, for personal reasons, I'm stepping down. I'm resigning at Edward Waters as the head coach for personal reasons. And my naive self steps up here and says, I believe it, because to leave your team this late in the process, right after SIAC Media Day, to leave your team just like that, leave them hanging, to me, it was shocking. It had to be personal reasons to leave this late, this close to the season, had to be. And I think that there is a clear difference between what happened with Reggie Barlow and what happened with Toriano Morgan, because both did very similar things. Reggie Barlow left the DC Defenders a week before the season started. I did not criticize him for that then. I don't criticize him for that now. When it comes to Morgan, I don't criticize him for his decision either. I criticize it for how it was handled. The personal reasons has always, I said it then. I said it on Friday. A lot of times it's a scapegoat. It's something that you can't argue. Someone says personal reasons, you have to leave it alone. I think that Urban Meyer has stepped down multiple times due to personal reasons, I think, because he's had some issues, or maybe he just retired, and maybe that was just the way he did it. But multiple times you just want to get out of it, personal reasons, because no one's questioning that. And I gave him the benefit of the doubt not to question it because it was so late. I would have appreciated it way more if Morgan just would have stepped down and accepted the job as the co-offensive coordinator and running backs coach immediately. But instead, you step down. People say, oh, you're going to be sought after. You weren't sought after. You had the job. I just wonder at what point was this job put on the table? Because everybody expected it to be Fred Keiss and possibly Fred Keiss and Shannon Harris. Keiss declined the job about 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks to a month ago. At what point did they contact Morgan? I would have to assume pretty soon. I'd have to assume that they didn't waste time getting to Morgan. And I'd also say that it's clear that Barlow wants co-offensive coordinators. That's the other thing. When it comes to roster construct or staff construction, we talked about this. We talked about this with Edward Waters. But when it comes to staff construction and how you want your staff to be set up, it's clear to me that Reggie Barlow wanted co-offensive coordinators. At first, it was supposed to be Fred Keiss and Shannon Harris. They were on his roster. They were on his staff at the DC Defenders. When Keiss stepped down, you didn't just give Harris the reins as the full-time OC, no sharing the title. You said we're going to go get Toriano Morgan. So it's clear you want the co-title. That's just clear to me. No opinion on it. It's just clear. But yeah, I just didn't like it. I didn't like it. I think stepping down for personal reasons when you had probably already accepted that job. I didn't like that you went to SIAC Media Day, stood there with them. 24 hours later, you stepped down. I didn't like any of that. I didn't. I just think it could have been handled better. Decisions don't have to be bad. It could have just been handled better. For example, I think LeBron could have just handled his move to Miami better. Some people have a problem with the decision itself. I have a problem with the airing of a special to announce his decision at the end of the special, right? That's my problem. There's a difference between what you did and how you handled it. Both come into play when judging a statement or judging an action, judging a decision. And I wasn't a fan of the latter. But when it comes to Harris, I'm shocked because I thought he'd be the DC Defenders head coach. And it makes me wonder if he was offered the job. Because this is something that Fred Keiss said. He said, first off, they offered me the job first, and I declined because I think that Harris was deserving of it, and he should have got it. And then afterwards, this is something else he says. He says, I told them that I believed it's still my job to make sure they get back to the NFL, but I felt a lot of pressure on me to make sure that we got Shannon a contract and he gets to stay as the head coach. I just felt that was our obligation. It could be a life changer for him, and it will be. So at that time, he still thought that Harris would take the job. But understanding that they didn't offer him the job originally, or didn't want to offer him the job originally, it makes me wonder if they just don't see him as head coach material. The fact that, I think that Shannon Harris showed himself to be head coach material with the DC Defenders this year. And honestly, what he just did in the UFL could go a long way for him snagging a job in college as a head coach as well. That's something that we should look out for as well. I'm not looking for Harris to leave Tennessee State or looking for a way out. I just think that when you succeed the way he did as a head coach, being a head coach is in your future. It's just a matter of where. I thought it'd be with DC. But when I factor in the fact that they originally weren't going to give him this job, and then I factor in with the fact that he did go to Tennessee State, he's going back. You tell me, if they say you could be a professional head coach or be a collegiate offensive coordinator, which one are you picking? I think the majority of us are picking the head coach. So either DC did not offer Shannon Harris the head coaching job, which to me is crazy. A player after the championship said he deserves the right to be the head coach if that's what he wants to be. DC, if you didn't offer him the job, or excuse me, I'm assuming you offered him the job, because I just think you should have after everything he did. What does it say about the Defenders that Barlow chose to go back to college and be an OC? It's interesting to me. It's interesting. Makes me wonder why he would pick it. Him picking this genuinely makes me feel like they did not offer him the job, but I cannot wrap my head around why they would not give him the job. I just can't. Right? Like, maybe you can tell me. But I spent the majority of the UFL season talking about whether or not Shannon Harris would be offered the DC Defenders job. And I say offer because I assume once he offered it, or once he was offered it, he would accept. He didn't accept, but was he offered? Things we'll never know. Things we'll never know. But let's continue. Let's get back to our mailbag Monday. We're going to wrap it up. More Jackson State conversation, and then also a conversation around the scheduling of the SWAC in the ESPN schedule, or the ESPN SWAC schedule. We're going to talk about that as we continue with Locked On HBCU. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. One hand today, because we're going to read off a series of comments, right? A conversation that was had in the comment section under the video that says SWAC TV Impact, in case you want to go on YouTube if you didn't already watch it on YouTube. Regal 394 says, I tried to get my backstory before. I said that the SWAC ESPN schedule is based off of 3 teams and maybe 4. I say 4 because Alabama State versus Alabama A&M is a game on there. They have a game that's on ESPN, but for the majority, it's based off of Jackson State, FAMU, and Southern. I said Alcorn isn't in the bunch because their only games on there come against Jackson State, FAMU, and Southern. So I didn't necessarily feel like they were valued highly when it comes to this schedule. Regal didn't appreciate that. Regal 394 says, no, Alcorn is in there because we're a premier program in the SWAC. The schedule is built off of 5 programs. And yes, we do stand alone. Alabama State has never carried the SWAC like Alcorn. Are you insane? Maybe. But I also think that you are arguing against points that are not my point and disagreeing with things that I did not say because you kind of are misunderstanding what I was trying to get at. I would not disrespect what Alcorn has done historically. But I do not believe that ESPN based what they picked on what someone has done historically. Because if we're going to keep it a buck, Alcorn ain't been that hot since 2019. If we're going to keep it a buck, I understand what you're saying. Like Alabama State has never carried the SWAC like Alcorn has. Okay, but who cares? Who cares? That doesn't matter right now. I'm not talking about who Alcorn is in the grand standing of the SWAC. The truth of the matter is, it's been 5-6 years since Alcorn State was a premier program in the SWAC. With that amount of time gone, that's the last time they won the SWAC. It's the last time they won a division. Since moving to the West, they haven't won the division. It's been, Alabama A&M, or was it UAPB? It was one of them. That spring season is weird. Then you had SWAC West being dominated by Southern and PV. They were just alternating over the last 4 years. You're going on half a decade of real fall football since Alcorn has won a divisional title. I respect everything they've done. Shout out to Aaron McNair. I respect everything that Alcorn has done. But when you're looking at that ESPN schedule, Grambling isn't on there but one time. And I bring them up because someone said Grambling is the king of the SWAC. Responding to them, Regal said, who said anything about Grambling? You should be addressing the man like I did. First off, I respect you. Yeah, address me. Like I did. He's the one that left y'all out. No, the ESPN schedule left them out. And I think the idea of Grambling being the king of the SWAC is a great point here because Grambling did all of these things for the SWAC. Grambling carried the SWAC the same way Alcorn did. Grambling was one of those dogs that was consistently one of the best teams. To me, they have one of, if not the highest football brands historically in the SWAC. But you know why they're not here? Because Grambling hasn't been good in half a decade. That's why. Grambling has not been a championship contender, and neither has Alcorn. So when looking at why I decided to say that the SWAC schedule on ESPN was built on the backs of 3 teams, maybe 4, you can't say Alcorn stands alone because I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. Alcorn does not. It literally does. These are facts. Alcorn literally does not stand alone. Alcorn, every single game, was there with Southern, FAMU, and Jackson State. Those are their 3 games. And I think it does have more to do with Alcorn's opponents than Alcorn. But what I will do to make things clear is Alcorn is a respected program. Alcorn is a program that's picked to finish second in the SWAC West. And I think they finished second in the SWAC West a couple of times. They're not trash. I'm not trying to say that they're garbage. So they do play a part. Because if it was Mississippi Valley State, if it was Texas Southern, there's a reason that TSU versus Southern isn't on there, right? Like, we got to be real about it. I'm shocked that PV isn't on there at all. PV is not there. PV might be on there, but I'm surprised that PV doesn't have more of a representation. I don't think PV is on there. I really don't. Let me see. Let's see. Is PV here? There's no PV. It's SWAC East dominant. That TSU versus Grambling game is stunning to see. It's stunning to see that. But yeah, so to me, I mean no disrespect to Alcorn. I really don't. That's just how I view it. Now, the last thing I want to look at, also, and just to be clear, historically, yes. Right now, no. Alcorn is a team that has not won in recent history, so they have to get back on that to earn that same level of respect so that they can be valued. It's not about what I value. It's about what ESPN has shown they valued. And the fact that Bama State, someone even said, I'm surprised about Bama State. That's because Bama State, to me, has been a team that has been buzzing, no pun intended, has been buzzing for a while. And they get talked about a little bit more than I feel like Alcorn does, even though they've had similar level of success in recent history. And that's the fact that they ain't won a championship. They ain't won a title, right? So both have struggled to hit that mark. Alabama State, I wouldn't even have said that about Alabama State if they did not have the Alabama A&M game. If the MGC wasn't there, or even the MCC wasn't there, I wouldn't have said that. So I think it's really built off the back of 3 schools, and Alabama State gets a little bit of love from it too. That's me though. Regal, I appreciate you, and I understand that you don't agree. But no, I'm not insane. Lastly, is Him Sultan 5019. He says that Jackson State struggled to beat Bama State, who was playing a 5th-string quarterback, walk-on quarterback. Stop pretending Jackson State is that good. You know, it's always interesting to me when people will discredit someone else just to not credit the person they don't want to credit. But this is new, where you discredit yourself to not credit Jackson State. Because what he just did was act as if Alabama State was some garbage team. And I think he misrepresented what really happened. Jackson State and Alabama State had a slugfest. Jackson State and Alabama State played a game where the final score was 16-10. That was a defensive game between the top defenses in the conference. To say they struggled to beat Alabama State, it really takes out the context of the fact that it was just a defensive game. Stop pretending Jackson State is that good. I won't. Your defense just was that good too. Alabama State had a great defense last year. But you have to understand, even with being held to 16 points by Alabama State, Jackson State averaged 36 on the year. Jackson State had really good games against everybody. Your defense is just that good, so it made you sit here and say, we're the 5th-string quarterback. The 5th-string quarterback is not the reason that this game was close. Do I think that if you had your 1st or 2nd-string quarterback that you might have won? Yeah, I think there's a chance. I do, 100%. But I don't think that it's fair to devalue Jackson State based off of the Alabama State game, because the truth is it's just the offense. It's just the offense for Alabama State that was bad. The defense was great. So if the defense can stop Jackson State from scoring, which they did, it's going to be a close game. Period. So I just don't. I'm all for fan banter, but to bring it into my point, you're not keeping it a buck. You're not being 100 with it, right? Like, that's how I feel about this in the Alcorn thing. Like, you're not being 100 because you're not really acknowledging where your school stands at this current time if you're Alcorn. And then when it comes to Alabama State, you're not being 100 about how great your defense is. And you just want to get that off so you can discredit Jackson State. I'm not saying that there's some unbeatable juggernaut, but last year they were the best team in black college football. That's not crazy. They won the ring. And they were pretty dominant in most of their games along the way. That too, like they played a close one with you, They lost to Grambling on some crazy stuff. They just had a ridiculous amount of turnovers. But everybody else they were beating. Like I could go through their games. I remember them smacking people. Even a game versus Alabama A&M that was relatively close. It was a late comeback, but they were smacking the Bulldogs. All right. So I think I won't start pretending that Jackson State was the best team because that's what they were. And that's okay. But please, keep the fan banter away from me. Keep it in my comments, but keep it away from me, please. All right. And I don't remember what I think you said when you addressed my comment. I think that's what you said when I addressed your comment to do something, but I couldn't find your secondary comment. I don't know if you deleted it. I don't know if I imagined it. I don't know. Maybe I ain't getting enough sleep. So maybe I need to leave now so that I can get some rest. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family. Oh, tomorrow's episode, we previewing SWAC MEAC Media Day. So saying what I expect from them and what I'm looking forward to seeing. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.